Welcome to Film and Page. I'm Dominic, and in this video I'm going to be talking about a book that I've wanted to talk about for a while on my channel. The Three-Body Problem by Cixin Liu. I think that's how it's pronounced. And this book was originally published in 2008. And this book was on my top 5 most wanted to read science fiction books. I did that video a while back. And so shortly after I made that video, I picked this book up and finally got around to reading it over the summer. And I have to say, I was blown away. This is one of the best science fiction books I've read in a long time. It was really, really amazing. So I'll give I'm not... It's hard to talk about this book in any detail without spoiling a lot of stuff. So I'll try to give like a kind of a brief overview of the setup and the plot of the book without spoiling anything, and then I'll give a spoiler warning when I'm going to get into more detail about the book and talk about heavy spoilers, because there's a lot of exciting ideas in this book that I want to talk about. But first, I'm going to take a closer look at the book itself. So the one thing about this book, when I seen it in the bookstore, that really caught my eye was the cover. And I like the, it's like some really nice digital painting on the cover there. And I like how it's kind of got all this cold blue look to it. And it really makes the title pop right out with the green there. The Three-Body Problem. Here's a look at the spine. And a quick look at the back. Got some praise there from President Barack Obama and George R.R. Martin. Take a quick look at the inside. The Three-Body Problem, translated by Cixin Liu. And I really like the layout of the book. It's really comfortable to read. I like this when the books are this size. It's my favorite kind of format for books. So now I'll talk a little bit about my background with this story. So this is a book that I can't exactly pinpoint when I first heard about it, but I heard about it like through YouTube videos and things like that, because I follow YouTubers that talk about books and review books. So I've heard it mentioned in those kind of circles, and then I would see it on the shelves at my local bookstore. And like I said, the cover always kind of stood out to me. And so it's just the book just kept coming up over and over and over again as a really good science fiction book. So I had to pick it up. And boy, am I glad I did. So I'll give a quick rundown of the plot. So basically what this book is about, it is about what happens when humans finally make contact with an alien race. And specifically, what would happen if humans actually received an alien signal and they got it here on Earth, and how would humanity react to that information? And it's I gotta say, it's a really good spin on the whole idea, and it feels really unique. That's one thing about this book that I really liked, is the whole story, everything about it, even though it's not an original idea, the way it's presented, it makes it feel really fresh. And that's what I really liked about the book. So the book starts off during the Cultural Revolution that's taking place in China. And there is a girl, Yi Wenji, who witnesses her father beaten to death during this revolution. And she is somewhat of a political prisoner, and she's put into a work camp. And while she's there at this camp, she befriends this journalist who gives her a book that's kind of like this forbidden book. And it's all about environmentalism and things like that. And just the ideas of it is not really something that the government approves of. And so she's kind of tricked by this journalist into writing a letter on his behalf to the government with this book. And so then it's used to frame her as the one supporting this book or trying to spread the propaganda in this book around. She's then thrown in jail, and they try to force her to basically renounce her beliefs, but she refuses to do it. And so even though she's in this work camp, her primary trade is, or career is, she's an astrophysicist. So then they take her out of this prison, and they bring her to this military base called Red Base, where they have a setup there that they're looking for signals from extraterrestrials. And the base also has some military applications as well. And so while she's there, she actually figures out a way how to contact or send the signal out into space, and she receives a reply. And the reply is not exactly what anyone would ever expect. The reply turns out to be a warning from a race saying, hey, do not contact us. You don't want us coming there. And so Yi Wenji has kind of, because of everything she's experienced with the death of her father and the Cultural Revolution and everything that's been going on in China, she kind of decides, you know what, humanity's not really worth it. And she replies. And it's the consequences of that reply that gets everything going in motion in that book. So that's the setup for the book, and it is really, really good. And it's a pretty hard sci-fi. It's not like a soft sci-fi book. It's got some heavy science concepts in there, but the way they're presented, it is really fascinating, and it really pulls you through the book. Now, besides the character of Yi Wenji, some of the other characters that we follow in this book is a character called Wang Miao. And he is, we actually follow this character for quite a bit throughout the book. And he's a professor of nanotechnology, and he's working on this nanofilament. This almost like a wire or a particle or a filament that's super thin, and it's just basically a strand of nanoparticles all in a long string. And it's like super strong and almost indestructible. So he's working on this project, and the other character we follow is a cop called Shi Quang, and but he goes by a nickname in the book Da Shi, and he's kind of like this former kind of dirty, corrupt, crooked cop. And so these are the three primary characters of the story. And as they move through the story, they're kind of presented with a mystery, and they have to figure out what this mystery is or solve this mystery. And that's what really pulls you through the book, is trying to figure out how all these weird things that are happening to the characters are all kind of connected. And so that really pulls you through the book, and that's what I really liked. It really read almost like a science fiction thriller. It was really engaging. So now I'm going to get into more detail about the plot of the book. So now we're going to get into spoilers. So spoiler warning if you haven't read the book. I don't want to get into too much detail. If you haven't read the book, I would say just don't watch the rest of the video, because the less you know about this story going in, the more fun it is for you to read it. Ignorance is bliss when it comes to this story, because there's so many surprises in it. But now I'm going to get into more spoilers. So I want to talk about the characters. So the three primary characters that we follow in this book, they're not super developed. It kind of reminds me of 2001 in that aspect, where the two astronauts, the characters are like stand-ins to kind of push the plot forward, and it's more about the grand idea than actual characters. So this is not like a character story at all. It does kind of develop the characters a little bit, but not to the extent of some other books would. So it's definitely not a character-heavy type story. It's more about this whole idea of what would happen if humanity came into contact with an alien race. But some of the characters are pretty good. Like I said, we mostly follow the professor of nanotechnology, Wang, through the story. He has all these weird coincidences or weird problems that pop up, and he has to somehow try to figure out what's going on. So it involves there's kind of like a murder mystery mixed in there, and almost what seems like paranormal happenings, but they're not paranormal once you get to the end of the book. And it's all happening to this character, Wang. So he starts to see a series of numbers in his eyesight, and it seems to be counting down something. And he can't figure out why it's there, or how it got there, or what's happening. So he has to try to figure this out. And in the meanwhile, he gets recruited by this organization that tells him that there is a war going on, even though no one's heard of it, this war. It's almost like a secret war or an invisible war. And they want him to try to infiltrate this group. So this group then that they're fighting against, this other group of humans that they're fighting against, they recruit people using a virtual reality game called the 3-Body Problem, where you're on a planet that has has 3 suns in its system. And so because of this, the planet is extremely chaotic, because no one can figure out when the suns are going to get closer or further from the planet. So every time a civilization comes up on this planet, it is either frozen or completely burned away or wiped out somehow by the three suns. And so how the players are recruited is they have to solve the problem of how to keep civilization going on a planet that would have three suns like this. And so this game is a way to recruit people into an organization that actually want the aliens to come to Earth, because they think humanity has almost completely destroyed the planet and humans aren't worth it. And then this group itself is actually split into two groups. One group that believes the aliens should come here and wipe out humanity and then take over the Earth. And another group that believes the aliens should come here, wipe out most of humanity, but then have a select few that are worthy to keep around. And so this is like all the world powers are kind of united to try to stop this group. And because this group is actually working with the aliens, and it seems like the aliens aren't really very nice aliens. They actually want to invade Earth, wipe out humanity, and take it for themselves, because their own planet is so inhospitable because they have these three suns. And so the character of Wang is kind of drawn into this whole world, and so we kind of like follow. He's almost like the reader's viewpoint of the story. So he's the one discovering all this stuff and going through it. Now, the other character I want to talk about, and this is actually my favorite character in the book, it's the crooked cop of Da Shi. He is just like a brilliant character. I really like him because he just doesn't care. You know, he's ignorant to everyone. You know, he's always he's a piece of shit, and he admits he's a piece of shit. And but he's very important to the story because you have all these military guys and scientist guys that are all like trained to think a certain way, and it's actually his out of the box thinking that really gets them out of a jam. And the plan he comes up with to stop this organization is my favorite part of the book, actually, the whole sequence. So my favorite part of the book is the organization that wants these aliens to come to Earth are actually in contact with the alien race. And so they have a huge data file all about these aliens, that all these governments that are opposing this group, they're trying to get a hold of this information so they can make a plan to try to repel this alien invasion. So now this organization has all the information on a big oil tanker that is privately owned. So they can't figure out how to actually invade this tanker or get on board this tanker without these guys destroying the information before they can get their hands on it. So they've thought of everything to try to, take this group out, but they can't think of any way. So what Da Shi does is he comes up with a plan using Wang's nano technology to actually stop these guys and get the information. And so they've created like a nano filament, and it's so small and it's like indestructible, but that makes it like extremely sharp that it can cut through solid steel like butter, but you can't see it. So it's kind of coming through this, I'm not sure of the name, almost like a docking port thing. And so they have to go through it to get out into the ocean, this oil tanker, at a certain point in time. So they set this trap of two large beams that will actually rise up and stretch out an invisible net of this nano filament. And so as the tanker passes through it, it just cuts through it like butter. And before they know what happens, or they can have a chance to do anything, they don't even realize it. Everything's been cut apart. But it cuts everything so clean that even if it cuts all the computers apart, the cuts are so clean, the scientists and the engineers can piece it all back together and get the information. And, my favorite line in the book is as it's going through this thing and getting cut apart, one of the generals says to the other guy, that Da Shi, that crooked cop, he truly is a demon for coming up with this plan. I really like that line in the book. Now, getting more into some of the other things I really liked about this book is I loved the mystery of it, how it drew you through the book. Now, I talked a little bit about that earlier, but that's one of the things I really liked about it. And the other thing is some of the scientific concepts in this book is really crazy, but it makes it very believable. And I think the one is that really fascinated me and just blew my mind is how the aliens were able to unfold a proton up into 11 dimensions and build a supercomputer on the inside of it and fold it back down. And then they basically had a supercomputer that was self-aware, size of like a proton particle. and then that's what they sent to Earth. And because it was connected to, so they made two like this, kept one on their own planet, sent the other one to Earth. And because of this whole superstring theory where they were both connected, they could then communicate instantaneously with this group on Earth in real time. So that whole idea, I thought that was, wow, that was really, really amazing. That was a really cool idea. That it was just like one of those mind-bending things. It was really good. I really enjoyed that part. Also, the aliens themselves are really strange in this book. And what I liked about it is it's, you know, most aliens are very similar to us when they're portrayed in fiction, especially in like things like Star Trek and stuff. But I really like it when science fiction are really able to make the aliens seem very alien, you know, very strange and different from us. And this book does a really good job of doing that, and I really like that. Now, the only thing, one of the few flaws in this book, I guess, if there are any flaws, was when the character of Wang had his repeated attempts going into the three-body problem game. It was kind of got like, it was fascinating the first few chapters he did it, but then by the final time he goes into the game, that last part of the book, I'm glad they stopped it at that point, because it was starting to get kind of repetitive and stale, and that part of the book was got a little bit boring for me, him repeatedly going into the three-body problem game. But thankfully they ended it at a point where I was just starting to get bored with it, but if it had to have gone on like a few more chapters, I would have been okay, like, let's move on from this game and figure out what's happening here with the rest of the story. So that was maybe like one flaw in the book. Now, should you read this book? Absolutely, yes, you should read this book. If you're into science fiction, this is like an absolute must-read. Like, I can't give this book enough praise. This book just might make my top 5 favorite science fiction books of all time. Now, I'll give it a bit of time and then see how the book, you know, how I feel about the book after some period of time has gone by, maybe give it a reread. But as for right now, I really love this book. Now, the only flaw in the book maybe is where it hinges so much on kind of like a mystery and trying to figure that out. I don't know how it's going to work on a reread when you know where everything leads in the book. Will it be better on a reread? Where some other books, you know, they get better with repeat readings. Like I found that. So that maybe might keep it off my top 5. I don't know, but I'll let some time go by and then see. And then when I read the other 2 books, which I plan on to in the series, I'll see how it unfolds then. Speaking of the series, so this book is actually part 1 of a trilogy of books. And the series is called The Remembrance of Earth's Past Trilogy. That's the actual name of the series. And so the other book in the series, the second book, is The Dark Forest, and the conclusion is Death's End. So I'm really curious as to how all this is going to play out in the story and how it's going to be resolved. And I hope the other 2 books are just as good, if not better, than this first one. So yes, I totally recommend this book. If you haven't read it, you really have to go out and read it. Not only that, they are working on a series for Netflix based on this book. And so that's also really interesting, and I'd be curious to see how that series actually works out. So that's everything I got to say in this video. Let me know what you think in the comments section, and I will see you at the next one. I'd like to say thank you to all of my subscribers. I appreciate you all in helping this channel grow. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, don't forget to hit the bell icon so you'll be notified when new videos are uploaded.